Chapter 1611. Director Martin had done a lot of research on Hua culture, so he could tell that Ning, she was very professional in making tea. It was supposed to be a very dull plot, but Ning Shi's every move from making tea to pouring tea was filled with a sense of art and classical Chinese flavor. The collision of Chinese and Western culture made Martin's blood boil. This was the effect he wanted. Therefore, even though the filming time was over, Martin didn't stop it. He asked the cameraman to continue filming and didn't want to cut a single frame. "Shi, you're amazing." After the first scene, the director came up to Ning Shi and gave her a warm hug. This time, his compliment was obviously more sincere. "Have you learned how to make tea?" Ning Shi was very happy to be praised by an international director like Martin. "Yes, but I'm not very good at it. I can only do it for the filming." No. You're better than many professionals I've seen. You're very good." Director Martin had a serious look on his face. Then, he looked at the girl with a thoughtful expression. He had found a Hua actress purely to make a gimmick to make some money at the box office, but he didn't expect that the girl's performance would be so good. Wouldn't 3 minutes of footage be too little? The scene was over, and the next scene followed. Ning Shi only had 2 scenes in total. If this one went well, she could leave tomorrow. The next scene was a fight scene between her and Orlando. The director had specially hired a top martial arts director to teach them martial arts moves. Orlando must have been working with this martial arts director for the past few days, so he was very familiar with the moves. Ning Shi was also a fast learner. When Ning Shi and Orlando practiced in private, they did it in slow motion and only sped up a little when they were familiar with it. Orlando's attitude changed after he saw Ning Shi change clothes. Now he was as gentle as water and patiently taught her to cooperate with her, for fear of hurting her. Ning Shi was disgusted by his pampering. After all, she had been in the battlefield. How could she not know what this guy was trying to do? "This guy wants to flirt with me?" It was said that Orlando liked Asian girls, and it seemed that it was true. However, Orlando was still a gentleman. Although he was suspected of using filming to pick up girls, he never flirted or touched her. "Well, everyone get ready. The next scene is about to begin," Director Martin shouted, not far away. Orlando immediately said to Ning Shi affectionately, "Don't worry, I'll secretly slow down a little later. You don't have to worry about not being able to keep up." "Thank you, Senior Orlando." Ning Shi thanked him obediently. Orlando's protectiveness was satisfied, and he smiled with satisfaction. Action. Filming began. Orlando and Ning Shi stood opposite each other in a forest. In this scene, Orlando stole the treasure map and was stopped by Ning Shi. The moment the director shouted, the originally graceful and soft classical beauty seemed to have changed into a different person in an instant. In an instant, with the momentum of breaking through the air, she flew a kick toward Orlando with incomparable fierceness. Under the high slit of the Cheongsam, a white color flashed. When they were filming, the two mainly practiced their movements. In addition, this was the first time they were filming, so Orlando just treated it as a practice. He didn't expect that Ning Shi would change so much after entering the role. She was simply a walking killing machine. However, before he could react, the other party continued to attack him fiercely. She was no longer as gentle and obedient as before. She was simply terrifying at the last moment. Orlando was stepped under Ning Shi's foot, and she coldly pulled out the treasure map that he had hidden in his clothes lying on a dead leaf. Orlando looked at the girl's terrible and even chilling expression with an intoxicated expression. He murmured, "Oh, baby, I'm head over heels for you, Ning Shi." There was no such line, okay? This guy didn't like Chinese girls, but was a masochist? Chapter 1612. Good take. After a while, the director shouted. Hearing the director's shout, not only Orlando, but Ning Shi was also stunned. Did she hear it wrong? Not take-o, but good tack? Forget it. Maybe the director thought Orlando's impromptu line was good. Anyway, it was good to have a good take. Ning Shi hurriedly took her foot off Orlando's body. She reached out to Orlando and apologized. "I'm very sorry, Senior Orlando. Did I hurt you just now?" Orlando held Ning Shi's hand with an exaggerated expression, as if he had been blessed by a queen. "Of course not, honey. You were too gentle. You could have used more force." Make it hurt more. Ning Shi, what the hell did he mean by making it hurt more? This guy couldn't really be a shiver, right? That's good. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure working with you this time. I hope I'll have a chance to work with you again next time. Ning Shi bowed to Orlando to express her gratitude, and then went to thank the other artists and staff one by one. After this scene, she would be done. Xiao Tao, who had just come to her senses from the scene of her handsome brother Shi, found that brother, she was done. Sister Gigi said it would take a few days, but she didn't expect it to be so smooth. It was done in one day. Oh, what a pity. Not only was the scenery beautiful, but the handsome guys were also extremely handsome. Orlando was indeed the little devil that his fans called him. He was so charming, so charming. Seeing Ning, she saying goodbye to the audience. Orlando couldn't sit still anymore. He rushed up to Martin, his beautiful eyes full of begging. Oh, my dear Mr. Director, I think I said the wrong line just now, didn't I? So let me do it again. The director was deep in thought. Hearing this, he waved his hand impatiently. Orlando, this scene is over. Please don't disturb me. Then he went to the camera to watch the replay. Orlando sadly reached out to the director's merciless back. After greeting the actors and staff, Ning Shi walked up to the director. Director Martin, I'm honored to work with you. Although it's a short time, I've learned a lot. Ning Shi said goodbye. If there's nothing else I need to do, I'll leave the team tomorrow. After all, the hotel was provided free of charge and was considered a public resource. It wouldn't be good for her to continue staying here after her scenes were over. Director Martin looked at the girl in front of him and said seriously, My dear Shi, I have a request. You did a great job today, but I hope you can stay for a few more days. 3 days? No, 2 days, is that okay? Ning Shi thought for a while, thinking that there might be something else that needed her cooperation. For example, if there was a change in the plot, then her part would also be involved. Since it was the director's request and her schedule was enough, Ning Shi wouldn't refuse, so she simply agreed. Of course, no problem. I'm in the hotel. Director, if you need anything, you can contact me at any time. Martin heaved a sigh of relief. Thank you so much. Chapter 1613. After work, Martin immediately went to find the scriptwriter. Charles, please come to my hotel room after you're done. Bring the script with you. Charles, who had a cigarette in his mouth, looked as if he had expected this. He then made an okay gesture. Inside the hotel room, Martin was pacing back and forth. When Charles came in, he did not have time to say much. He could not wait to get straight to the point. Buddy, I want to add more scenes for dusk. What do you think? Charles gave Martin a high five and said in Chinese, Gentlemen think alike. Martin immediately expressed his thoughts excitedly. There's only one fight scene. That's too little. Dusk's skills are great. The effects are very exciting. Charles pondered for a moment and then interrupted him. But, buddy, you have to understand that if we add too many scenes, it means that we have to cut out other parts of the plot. One had to know that movies had a very precise time requirement. Sometimes a frame of special effects would cost a lot of money. It was not easy to get an extra second of footage. The reason why Martin was so conflicted was naturally because of this. He said with a firm gaze, Charles, don't you think that this wonder of uncanny craftsmanship and the strong Oriental cultural heritage displayed by the sunset are more touching than the cold special effects? I know there are risks, but I believe in my judgment. Charles shrugged. Okay, if you insist. In fact, I think so too. Okay, let's discuss the additional scenes. How long do you want to add? 10 minutes? No, 15 minutes. Martin said excitedly, appearing for 15 minutes in a blockbuster full of special effects. That was almost as long as the second female lead scenes. Even Benny, who was one of the main leads, only had 10 minutes. Charles said, if that's the case, then I suggest that we add another emotional line. Her and Orlando's emotional line. Before the scriptwriter Charles could finish his words, there was a loud bang. A tall figure rushed in like a whirlwind and hugged Charles. Oh, baby, I love you. You're my angel. Charles pushed Charles away helplessly. Orlando, you don't have to thank me. I think Martin thinks so too. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left you the wrong line just now. Orlando was about to hug Martin again, but Martin dodged him with disdain. "Orlando, I know she's your type." Orlando immediately interrupted him and said with a serious expression, "Oh no, darling, she's not just my type. She is my queen." Martin was speechless. "But I have to warn you. You know me. Flirting with girls is strictly forbidden on set. Gossip is strictly forbidden. You'd better be careful." Orlando pointed to the sky and swore, "I swear to God, I will definitely endure until the filming is over before I pursue her." Martin knew that although Orlando was a playboy, he still had professional ethics, so his expression softened a little. Orlando saw that the director was no longer angry, so he quickly stuck to the more easygoing scriptwriter and smiled obsequiously. "Hey, dear Charles, what do you think about arranging a bed scene? It will definitely be very exciting." Chapter 1614. Orlando's request was flatly rejected by the director. In the end, he decided to take the ambiguous route. Orlando had a good impression of this mysterious Oriental woman, but the goddess was heartless. Falling flowers yearned for love, but heartless water flowed mercilessly. In short, it was Orlando's wishful thinking. Orlando imagined himself being stared at by those cold, emotionless eyes, and suddenly felt his blood boil. Well, it was also very exciting to be rejected by the queen. After returning to the hotel, Ningxi first reported the situation to Lin Jiji. "Sister Jiji, today's shooting went well. Both scenes have been shot, but the director asked me to stay for another 2 days. Maybe he needs me to cooperate with him later." On the other end of the phone, Lin Jiji was silent for a while, but she didn't say anything. "Okay, got it." Generally speaking, an artist would not be asked to stay on the crew after shooting. Besides, Ningxi's scenes didn't affect much, so there was no possibility of any change, unless there might be more scenes later. However, in a Hollywood crew, it was good enough that Chinese people didn't have all kinds of scenes deleted. Many artists had been filming for a few months, and in the end, only a few scenes were deleted. It was almost impossible to have more scenes. Lin Jiji wasn't sure, so she didn't say anything, but let Ningxi continue to wait. Ningxi had just taken a shower and was leaning against the recliner on the balcony, enjoying the cool night breeze mixed with the fragrance of plants. Suddenly, a low, hoarse, and affectionate voice came from downstairs. "You let me taste the taste of love like a quiet night in the forest, like the mountains of spring, dispirited like a free and easy stroll in the rain, like a crazy desert storm, like a gentle sleeping blue sea." Xiao Tao rushed out of the room. "Ah, it sounds so good." It seems to be Lord Orlando's voice. Orlando had been a singer before entering the entertainment industry. His voice was very charming, and he was once known as the Prince of Love Songs. Now, on such a beautiful night, with such a beautiful scenery, he was singing this love song with love, which was enough to make all girls fall in love. Xiao Tao didn't even put on a mask. She took it off, then leaned on the railing excitedly and looked downstairs, exclaiming excitedly, "Ah, brother Shi, it really is Lord Orlando." At this moment, Orlando was standing under a bush of roses. Behind him was the rippling surface of the lake. He had blonde hair and blue eyes, and he was looking at Ningxi affectionately as he sang. It was like a romantic scene from a retro movie. "Let me give you my whole life. Let me fall in love with your smile. Let me die in your arms. Let me always be by your side. Please accept my love for you." Hearing this, Xiao Tao suddenly recovered from her intoxication and covered her mouth. "Ah, my God! What? What does Lord Orlando mean? Standing on elder brother Xi's balcony and singing a love song with such lyrics?" Although Orlando was singing in English, this song was too famous. It was a household name in China. Xiao Tao was also very familiar with it, so she understood all the lyrics. Ningxi looked downstairs and happened to meet Orlando's affectionate eyes. Ningxi, she had thought that even if Orlando had feelings for her, he would not show it in front of the crew, but now, Ningxi pinched between her eyebrows and was worried about what to do when she heard Orlando's cell phone ringing downstairs. At the same time, the opposite window opened. Through the shadow of the tree, Ningxi vaguely saw Director Martin holding the phone and shouting, "Orlando, What did I say to you? Director Martin's roar came from the other end of the phone. Orlando looked aggrieved. I did promise you. But she is so cute that I can't help it. Dear Martin, if you had fallen in love with a girl, you would understand me. You shut up for your father. Get out of there now. Chapter 16:15. You shut up for your father. Get out of there now. Martin roared so loudly that even Ningxi could hear him. Ningxi was speechless as she listened to their bickering. Orlando reluctantly glanced at Ningxi and then muttered to Martin on the other end of the line. Martin, do you know what? You look like a father who wants to break up his daughter's love. Martin, he really wanted to beat that brat to death now. After being scolded for a while, Orlando finally left without turning back 3 times. Soon after he left, Ningxi's cell phone rang. It was Director Martin calling. Martin sighed helplessly. I'm sorry. That brat was too rude. I hope he didn't bother you. You can just ignore him. Ahem. It's okay. Fortunately, the entire scenic area was closed and there were no outsiders, so it wasn't a big deal. Martin continued, There's one thing I wanted to tell you when I was ready, but I'd better tell you now. I've discussed it with the scriptwriter, and we want to add more scenes for you. We'll decide the specific content as soon as possible, so please wait for a few more days. Hearing Martin's words, Ningxi was stunned. More scenes? Yes, your performance today was very exciting. I believe that your participation will surprise the audience even more. It sounded like there would be a lot more scenes. Ningxi quickly calmed down. Director Martin, thank you. Thank you so much for your affirmation. No, you deserve it. By the way, in addition to the fight scenes, you will also have a romantic relationship with Orlando. But don't worry, it's just an ambiguous relationship. Martin explained. Okay, I see. Thank you, Director. I'll do my best. Thank you for your trust and the opportunity. Ningxi still couldn't understand what was going on until she hung up the phone. Not only did they add a fight scene, but they also added a romantic relationship with one of the main characters. Xiao Tao immediately forgot about Orlando and was attracted by the word more scenes. What's wrong? What's wrong? What scenes? Brother Shi, did the director say he would add scenes for you? I think so. That's great. Xiao Tao spun around excitedly. I'll go tell Big Sis Gigi about this good news. After receiving Xiao Tao's call, Lin Gigi didn't expect that her prediction would come true. She immediately told Ningxi to cooperate with her and told them not to disclose the news to others. After all, it was just a verbal statement from the director. It hadn't been confirmed yet. Moreover, even if it was confirmed, it wasn't certain if it would be deleted later on. If it was leaked now and deleted later on, it would inevitably be seen as deliberate deception and hype. Right now, there were countless pairs of eyes staring at Ningxi. He had to be careful at all times. Got it, big sister Gigi. Also, there's one more thing. Xiao Tao looked at Ningxi hesitantly. She didn't know if she should tell her about Orlando. Ningxi also had a headache, but she felt that it was necessary to inform Lin Gigi, so she nodded to Xiao Tao. Xiao Tao said, Sister Gigi, Orlando seems to be interested in Brother Shi. He was singing a love song for Brother Shi just now, but Director Martin shouted at him to stop. Sister Gigi, you have no idea how handsome and charming Mr. Orlando is. He sings so well, and he seems to really like Brother Shi. Chapter 16:16. Xiao Tao was clearly reporting on her work, but the topic got sidetracked as she spoke. On the other end of the line, Lin Gigi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After all, Ningxi's image was very important. When she decided to take Ningxi with her, she had already prepared for this kind of thing. Ningxi had always been careful about what she said and did a good job, but she didn't expect that she couldn't hide forever. Nothing happened to the domestic artists, but something happened to the Hollywood crew. We just need to take care of ourselves and not let others gossip about us. As for Orlando, Director Martin is famous for his strictness. The director will restrain him. As for what would happen after the shooting, Ningxi would leave the crew and return to China after Orlando's part, so they wouldn't have anything to do with each other then. After the call with Lin Gigi, Ningxi felt relieved. Indeed, she just needed to get through this period of time. Moreover, for a man like Orlando, his passion came and went quickly. 2 days later, the new script was rushed out overnight. She was surprised after reading it. This plot was more important than she had imagined. After hearing this news, Lin Jiji immediately helped her adjust the following schedule to free up some time. Even though it might be deleted in the end, such an opportunity was too rare. She had to fight for it as long as there was a glimmer of hope. Sister Jiji, is there any news from Director Jiang? Ningxi had told herself not to think about it, but she still couldn't help asking. Rumor has it that it might be Feng Xiaowen, but there's no official news yet. I'll let you know as soon as there's news, Lin Jiji answered. Okay, thank you, Sister Jiji. Time passed quickly, and Ningxi's filming went smoothly. Director Martin's deterrence was obvious, and Orlando restrained himself. The last scene was going to be shot tomorrow. Orlando walked up to Ningxi with a reluctant look on his face. I really hope that this show can go on, Ningxi smiled. There's a saying in our country, all good things must come to an end. We'll have more opportunities to work together in the future. Thank you for taking care of me during this period, Senior Orlando. Probably knowing that Orlando might like to be abused, Ningxi tried to maintain a soft and well-behaved image in private. However, it seemed that it didn't work. The heat in Orlando's eyes did not subside. Instead, it became hotter and hotter as time passed. I'm really afraid that I won't be able to film the scene tomorrow. Orlando looked at the gun in his hand with a sad expression. In tomorrow's scene, Orlando would shoot Ningxi. Orlando hugged the scriptwriter Charles and cried several times. He even begged Ningxi to kill him, saying that he couldn't kill Ningxi, even if it was just filming. Ningxi's gaze inadvertently fell on the gun in Orlando's hand. Then she raised her eyebrows and couldn't help but pause for a few seconds. Orlando saw that she was interested and immediately introduced it to her excitedly. This is the Bullet 92F, the King of Spears. The gun body is made of aerospace aluminum alloy. Perhaps because men were naturally interested in guns, Orlando talked to Ningxi for a long time, and then said, "This is a fake, but it's very realistic. You'll also need a gun in your scenes tomorrow. Come, I'll teach you how to hold a gun." Chapter 16-17. Ningxi had to maintain her image as a weak bunny, so she couldn't say that she was very good at it. She said innocently, "Thank you, Senior." When Orlando heard this, he immediately taught Ningxi how to hold a gun and shoot in detail, as well as techniques to make her movements look more beautiful. "Orlando, get ready for the next scene," the director shouted not far away, his tone full of warning. During this time, as long as Orlando stuck to Ningxi for more than 5 minutes, Martin would give him a cordial greeting. Orlando looked at the stick not far away, then gently placed the gun in Ningxi's hands. "Do you like it? You can take it back and play with it. You can return it to me tomorrow during filming. Martin asked me to familiarize myself with how to hold a gun, and I'm already very familiar with it." Ningxi originally wanted to say no. She wasn't interested in a fake gun. Besides, she didn't have many scenes where she used a gun. It was just one scene, so she didn't need to practice. However, as soon as she met the other party's bright eyes that were filled with anticipation, Ningxi could only nod and accept it. "Thank you." During this time, she had expressed her rejection openly and secretly. She had even hinted that she already had someone she liked, but the other party was completely immersed in his emotional world and didn't listen to her at all. Luckily, the filming would be completed tomorrow. That night, they returned to the hotel after work. After taking a shower, Ningxi called Lu Tingxiao. At that time, the Six Corporation was still brightly lit. In the conference room, the tedious and stressful memories made everyone's faces tense and exhausted. In the cold air, a cell phone suddenly rang. Lu Tingxiao glanced at the caller ID, then raised his hand to interrupt the higher-ups who were reporting. Meeting adjourned. Everyone looked at each other. How important was this call for the boss to interrupt the meeting at this time? Is there a need to ask? Just look at the boss's expression. "Thank you, boss, for saving my life." "Hello?" Lu Tingxiao walked to a quiet balcony. "I miss you." Hearing the girl's voice, the man's expression instantly softened. "I asked Cheng Feng to book the plane ticket." Ningxi naturally knew how busy Lu Tingxiao was during this period of time, but just because she casually said something, he actually wanted to rush over immediately. Sigh. She must have saved the world in her past life. Ningxi said hurriedly, "No need. I'm calling to tell you that I'll be filming my last scene tomorrow, and I'll be able to go back the day after tomorrow. Give me your itinerary. I'll pick you up." Okay, okay. Ningxi was about to spend some time with Lu Tingxiao when she heard someone singing outside the window. "You let me taste the taste of love, like the quiet night in the forest, like the mountains in the spring." Ningxi was speechless. She had almost forgotten that a certain someone would hold a concert from time to time. Ahem, one of the leading actors of our crew used to be a singer. He likes to shout when he has nothing to do. "Let me stay by your side forever. Please accept my love for you, dear Shi, my most beloved Shi." Ningxi. Damn, this guy actually changed the lyrics. 16 Xiao. Ningxi. "Boss, don't worry, I will pinch it myself." The next day at the filming location. Last night, Ningxi had miserably explained to Lu Tingxiao for a long time. The first thing she had done after arriving at the set was to focus on preparing, hoping to pass it in one go. On the contrary, Orlando had made up his mind to do a few more NGs today. However, when it was time to film, Orlando was stunned. Chapter 16-18. The location of today's shoot was a cliff with a magnificent scenery. Originally, Ningxi was going to die under Orlando's gun, but later, Martin and Charles discussed it and finally arranged for her to be shot and fall off the cliff. In the end, Ningxi's life and death were not mentioned. When Martin made this suggestion, Charles was surprised to understand what Martin meant. This film was very likely to be a sequel. If the first film was shot and the response to Ningxi's role was very good, then it was very likely that Martin would let Ningxi continue to shoot the sequel. Ningxi naturally thought of this when she got the revised script. Even if she didn't want to avoid Orlando, she would definitely go all out today. 3, 2, 1, action. With the sound of the clappers, the shooting began. From the beginning, Orlando had the idea of deliberately making a few mistakes in order to get along with Ningxi for a while. He had been in the entertainment industry for a long time, and it was really easy for him to make a flawless take. However, when the shooting officially began, Orlando was completely dumbfounded. The moment the director shouted cut, Ningxi, who was holding a gun and fighting with the extras not far away, seemed to be possessed by something terrible. Originally, her plan for this scene was very simple, but under her performance, it became completely different. That dazzling marksmanship, that explosive cool action of holding the gun, that cold and excited gaze, it was as if she really was an emotionless assassin. And Ningxi's marksmanship was too amazing. Yesterday, he just casually taught her a lesson with an ulterior motive. It was impossible for her to do this. Although it was the first time they were shooting, Ningxi could actually lead everyone into the role and make everyone cooperate with her every move. Even Orlando, who had originally planned to make a take. In the end, his body completely uncontrollably tangled with the girl. He kicked away the gun in her hand, and then 10 steps away, he raised the gun to the girl's heart. His face full of emotions of love and hate. At this moment, he forgot everything. He forgot that he was Orlando, forgot that he had prepared to make a selfish take. He looked at the girl opposite him and completely entered the world of the protagonist, Randy. This mysterious and irredeemable girl just had to be his enemy. Compared to Orlando's complicated and struggling expression, Ningxi was just a killing weapon trained from a young age. She had no emotions, and even in the face of death, there was still no fluctuation in her eyes. Ningxi looked at Orlando, and her gaze fell on the gun in his hand. In the next second, her gaze sharpened, and her indifferent expression, which had been completely immersed in the play, shook imperceptibly. That gun, bang! Finally, Orlando closed his eyes and pulled the trigger. The moment Orlando pulled the trigger, his closed eyes widened in horror, and he was shaken out of the movie by the gunshot. What's going on? This was just a replica gun. How could it make such a sound? And the feeling when he fired the gun, just now. No, not only Orlando, but everyone present was also stunned. Martin, Charles, and all the other staff were in a mess. They ran in the direction of the girl's body in horror. Oh, my God. Oh my God. That's a real gun. Fuck. What the hell is going on? She. Ningxi, how are you? Chapter 16:19. In the hospital, outside the ward, Orlando's beautiful blonde hair was in a mess, his clothes were wrinkled, and one of his shoes had run away. At this moment, his face was filled with panic. In addition to Orlando, there were also the director, the producer, the screenwriter, the prop master, and Xiao Tao Orlando. You'd better give me an explanation. What the hell is going on? Martin was as irritable as an enraged lion. Martin, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how it turned into a real gun. Orlando held his head in pain, and his fingers were still trembling. Martin stared at the man in front of him. He didn't seem to be pretending. However, Martin's expression didn't ease at all. You don't know. That gun has been with you all the time. How could you not know? Orlando was at a loss. He held his head for a long time before he stammered. Yes, it's with me, but not all the time. I gave the gun to she last night and asked her to take it back to practice. She gave it back to me this morning. Xiao Tao was crying so hard that her eyes were almost swollen like peaches. She sobbed and said, Director, Mr. Orlando did give the gun to brother she last night. I was the one who returned it to Mr. Orlando the next day. Did it pass through anyone else's hands? Martin asked immediately. Xiao Tao shook her head. I don't think so. Damn it, Martin cursed in a low voice irritably. The hotel was locked down. Except for the staff, no one was allowed to enter. Who on earth changed the gun without anyone noticing? Why did they do this to us? It was a mess just now, and Ningxi's costume was red, so they couldn't tell where she was injured. Now the doctor was still examining her, and they didn't know how she was doing. Ningxi was the most popular actress of Shengshi Entertainment, the most powerful agency in Hua Nation, and Shengshi Entertainment was also a subsidiary of Lu Enterprises. If something happened to Ningxi and his crew, even if this matter didn't alarm the Lord of Lu Enterprises, they would definitely be in big trouble. Hua Nation had very strict gun control, so he used his connections to send the patient to this very secretive private hospital. Otherwise, if he was sent to another hospital, even the police would be alerted when they saw the gunshot wound. Why isn't she out yet? Orlando anxiously looked into the ward. Orlando, go back to the hotel and stay there. You're still a suspect, Martin said coldly. Orlando's face was ashen. I will, but please let me confirm Dust's situation first. At this time, the door of the ward opened, and a doctor in a white coat walked out. Doctor, how is she? A group of people surrounded her. Just as Martin nervously confirmed Ningxi's condition with the doctor, footsteps suddenly came from the corridor behind him. Martin's face darkened. Why would anyone come? He had clearly instructed the hospital to seal off this floor. Behind the man was a subordinate who looked like an assistant. His entire body exuded an incomparably frightening aura, as if he had come from a world of ice and snow. Martin's heart skipped a beat when he saw who it was. He cursed inwardly. Chapter 16:20. Lu Tingxiao. How was this possible? The CEO of the Lu Group, a legend on Wall Street, a legend in the Chinese business world. The other party was extremely low-key and rarely appeared in public. Martin recognized him because he had seen him once at a cocktail party. The other party did not seem to be as unreasonable as the rumors made him out to be. He seemed to be very interested in the entertainment industry and was very knowledgeable. He talked to him about many professional issues. Leo. Martin called out the other party's English name with trepidation. Martin almost did not dare to recognize him because the man in front of him now was too different from the one he had seen. How is he? Lu Tingxiao's eyes did not linger on Martin for a moment. Instead, he looked straight at the doctor like a sharp knife. Martin still had a glimmer of hope in his heart, but he did not expect the thing he was most worried about to happen. The other party was really here for Ningxi. The CEO of the group actually came out personally for an employee of a subsidiary. The doctor was frightened by the terrifying aura of the person who came. After the man appeared, he was instantly in a position of control. The doctor quickly ignored Martin and answered him. He's fine now. Fortunately, it's just a superficial wound. Superficial wound? It's just a superficial wound. Are you sure? Orlando could not help but interrupt. Yes, the bullet didn't hit any vital organs. It hit his shoulder, the doctor answered truthfully. Hearing the doctor's words, Martin looked like he had just survived a disaster. His back was already drenched in sweat. Then, Martin's eyes were filled with disbelief. One had to know that Orlando's gun was aimed at Ning Shi's heart. If it had hit her, it would have been a disaster. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that before Orlando shot, Ning Shi seemed to have moved very quickly. Did she notice that something was wrong and deliberately dodged? In that situation, how did she notice that something was wrong and accurately avoid the vital organs? Orlando did not have the time to think about who the person who suddenly appeared was. As soon as the doctor finished speaking, he immediately rushed into the ward. Lu Tingxiao's eyes lingered on Orlando for a second before he stepped into the ward. Martin was still completely clueless about the situation, so he could only follow him uneasily in the ward. At this moment, Ning Shi was leaning on the bed. Her wound had been treated, and she had changed into a hospital gown. She looked fine, but her face was a little pale. Are you okay? Sorry. I'm really sorry. I really didn't know that gun was real. I'd rather have the bullet hit me. Hit me thousands of times, suffer all the pain for you. Orlando was about to shake Ning Shi's hand excitedly, but for some reason he felt a chill down his spine, so he retracted his hand halfway. Ning Shi looked at Orlando and was about to speak when she saw the man behind Orlando from the corner of her eyes. She was so excited that she almost jumped up. Hey, boss! He almost changed his words. Lu Tingxiao frowned and strode over to press her down. His tone was extremely cold. Don't move. Boss, why are you here? Darling, I missed you so much. I was passing by on a business trip and heard about what happened to you. Lu Tingxiao said simply because the room was full of people from the production team. In fact, after calling Ning Shi yesterday, he booked a plane ticket and rushed over today. He was afraid that his wife's hand would hurt, so he came to pick the peach blossoms in person. Chapter 16:21. However, he didn't expect to receive such frightening news as soon as he got off the plane. Thank you, boss. The doctor just checked on me. It's just a superficial wound. It's not a big deal. I'm in so much pain, I want a kiss and a hug, although Ning Shi called him boss. The look in her eyes betrayed her coquettish nature. Lu Tingxiao almost lost control on the spot. Orlando's Chinese was passable. Hearing their conversation, he realized that the man who suddenly appeared was Ning Shi's boss. Orlando turned to Lu Tingxiao with a serious expression and gave him a 90-degree bow on the spot. So you're Dust's boss. I often hear she mention you. She says that you're someone she admires very much. It's all my fault. I didn't take good care of the gun, which caused it to be swapped. I'm the one who caused she to suffer such a terrible injury. Don't worry. I'll take responsibility for this. Lu Tingxiao could tell from the way Orlando looked at Ning Shi that this was the rotten peach blossom he heard on the phone last night. His expression was cold. Take responsibility? Orlando stole a glance at Ning Shi bashfully. Then he continued, I've decided. I want to marry Shi. Orlando spoke in Chinese. His Chinese was obviously not very good. He couldn't differentiate between the words marry and marry. After he said that, he seemed to realize that he was wrong, so he changed his words. I want to marry Shi. Anyway, I'll marry Shi. Lu Tingxiao, Ning Shi. Brother, what grudge do you have against me? Isn't it enough for you to shoot me? I'm already in such a state, and you still won't let me go? Even Martin couldn't stand it anymore. Orlando, shut up. You almost killed her, and now you want to marry her? What kind of logic is this? Also, he didn't know if it was just his imagination, but he felt that Lu Tingxiao's appearance was too strange. It wasn't as simple as just passing by and finding out about this. Hence, he was afraid that Orlando would say something wrong. However, Orlando wouldn't listen to anyone else's advice. He looked at Lu Tingxiao excitedly and continued, Sir, please believe in my sincerity toward Shi and be a witness to my vow today. Not a single word I said was false. From the first time I saw Dusk, I fell for her. Be it the way she hit me or the way she looked at me coldly, it made me believe that she was the person I had been looking for. I beg you, give me Xiaoxi. Ning Shi. It wasn't easy for me to escape from death. Was I going to die because of this guy? She no longer dared to look at Lu Tingxiao's expression. The air was eerily silent. Orlando stubbornly continued to watch Lu Tingxiao. Lu Tingxiao, no. Why? Orlando furrowed his brows. My feelings for she are sincere. I can hide our relationship for the sake of her career. Lu Tingxiao's gaze swept over Martin and the others. Excuse me for a moment. I have something to say to this gentleman alone. Martin was originally full of questions, but he didn't have a chance to ask after being interrupted by Orlando. Seeing that things had developed to this point, he had no choice but to leave with everyone. Why is that? After everyone left, Orlando continued to ask. Lu Tingxiao looked at the girl on the bed and stroked her chin with his slender fingers. In the next second, he leaned over and covered her lips with a deep, lingering kiss, because she's mine. Chapter 16:22. Orlando stood there in a daze, looking as if he had been struck by lightning into ashes. His hair was a mess, and his mouth opened and closed as if he wanted to say something, but he couldn't say anything for a long time. After a long time, a Chinese idiom finally came out of his mouth. You stole what you were guarding? Ning Shi. Don't show off your Chinese if you're not good at it. Okay. Speaking of which, she really had to sigh that her sweetheart was getting more and more skilled at ruthlessly destroying flowers. So handsome that her heart was beating wildly. Ning Shi coughed lightly and corrected him. It's mutual affection. Senior, I've told you before that I already have someone I love. Orlando stared at Lu Tingxiao, as if his outlook on life had been greatly subverted. That's impossible. How can a girl like such a cold guy? I'm more handsome than him, more charming than him, sweeter than him, cuter than him, more passionate than him. Are you being coerced by him? Because he's your boss? Ning Shi, I was the one who confessed to him and begged him to date me. Listening to the girl's words, Lu Tingxiao's expression was incomparably gentle. Orlando clutched his scarred heart shakily, but he still didn't give up. Suddenly, he thought of something and said excitedly, It said that he has a son. He even has a son. He's no longer pure. No longer pure. Ning, she was even more speechless. He sounded as if he was pure. He had so many girlfriends, senior. People who love each other don't care about these things. How can this be? Orlando squatted in the corner under the dark clouds of rain. This is not true. I don't believe it. I won't give up. In the end, all the crew members, including Orlando, were invited by Cheng Feng to cooperate with the investigation. For a moment, only Lu Tingxiao and Ning Shi were left in the ward. Ning Shi began to soothe him. Lu Tingxiao, I'm really fine. 1 second before Orlando shot, I realized that the gun seemed to be real, so I dodged the bullet. The bullet just grazed me. It looks a bit scary, but it's just a skin wound. I'll be fine soon. Lu Tingxiao was silent, but his face was still unusually ugly. What if she hadn't dodged? That spear would hit her heart. He didn't even dare to think about this possibility. Looks like someone wants to kill me. It was just that there were too many suspects. He really had no clue at the moment. Ning Shi frowned and recalled Orlando's behavior from beginning to end. During this period of time, according to my interaction with Orlando and my understanding of him, he really didn't know anything. And that gun has always been with me. It shouldn't have been in anyone else's hands. It's really strange. Don't think about it. Have a good rest. Leave this to me. Oh. Ning Shi listened obediently. Go home. Lu Tingxiao directly carried the girl by the waist. Although his tone was harsh, his actions were incomparably gentle. Ning Shi hurriedly said, What? But what about my last scene? You almost lost your life, and you're still thinking about this? Lu Tingxiao said coldly, Special effects. Looking at Lu Tingxiao's scary expression, Ning Shi didn't dare to ask more questions. She thought for a while. She was still in the movie until the last moment. The scene where the bullet hit the heart and the falling off the cliff were all special effects, so she was relieved. Chapter 16:23. Lu Tingxiao didn't waste any time and took Ning Shi back in his private plane. Orlando was still waiting for Ning Shi to finish the investigation, but he didn't know that she had already left Chuan City. Take a nap. On the plane, Lu Tingxiao carefully covered the girl with the quilt. In order to finish shooting and leave as soon as possible, Ningxi was really too tired during this period. Her physical strength and energy were almost overdrawn. At this moment, because Lu Tingxiao was beside her, she immediately relaxed completely. She nodded in a daze and soon fell asleep. Lu Tingxiao gently untied the girl's clothes and looked at the gauze on the girl's shoulder. His face was even darker. In the capital, after returning home, Ningxi temporarily stopped all her work under Lu Tingxiao's instructions and stayed at home to recuperate. She was finally allowed to go out when the gauze was removed and the wound was scabbed. In the evening, she asked Ning Tianxin to meet in a restaurant. Ning Tianxin didn't want to trouble her, so she went back when she was almost recovered. Ningxi was busy shooting, and Ning Tianxin was busy going abroad. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. Xiaoxi, how is your injury? It's just a minor injury. I've recovered. How about you? Have you continued to take the medicine Annie gave you? Ningxi asked. I'm fine. Annie's medicine is very useful. I've been taking it on time. The doctor said I'm recovering well, Ning Tianxin said. Ningxi was a little relieved when she heard that, but she knew that Ning Tianxin was comforting her. How could she be fine? Even Annie said that it would take a long time for her to recover. As for whether she could have children in the future, it was still unknown. Have you finished the formalities for going abroad? Almost. Ning Tianxin held the teacup in her hand and looked a little embarrassed. I wanted to take Mom with me so that I can take care of her, but she didn't want to. She said she was not used to the life abroad. It's like this, and she is not willing to move when she is old. Second Anna's moved out and lived alone. She doesn't have so many things to deal with. You can hire a reliable nanny. I will visit her often when I am free. Don't worry. Ningxi comforted her. That's right. Xiaoxi, thank you. If it weren't for you, look at you. You're being polite with me again. After chatting for a while, Ningxi noticed that Ning Tianxin's face was getting paler and paler. She asked nervously, Sister Tianxin, what's wrong with you? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Ning Tianxin gently put her fingers on her lower abdomen, frowned and shook her head, whispering, It's okay, Cici. It's my menstrual period today. I've had menstrual pain before. Maybe it's the first time I've had it after giving birth, so I'm having a big reaction. Ningxi was heartbroken. She hurriedly stood up and went to help Ning Tianxin. She blamed herself. Then you should go back and rest. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have asked you out today. Ning Tianxin said helplessly. It's just menstrual pain. It's not a big deal. That's all? Your face is pale. Ningxi supported Ning Tianxin and slowly walked towards the door. Ning Tianxin didn't expect that she would have such a big reaction this time. She really couldn't take it anymore, so she left the restaurant with Ning Xi's help. As soon as they stepped out of the door, they bumped into two people. They were Mo Lingtian and Guan Xiao. Ning Xi's face darkened at the sight of them. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. Chapter 16:24. Mo Lingtian was also stunned when he saw Ning Xi and Ning Tianxin. Especially when he saw Ning Tianxin, he stood there and didn't react for a long time. Ning Tianxin glanced at Mo Lingtian and the woman beside him. She was stunned for a while, but didn't react at all. When Ning Xi chatted with Ning Tianxin just now, she deliberately didn't mention Mo Lingtian because she didn't want Ning Tianxin to recall the past. She didn't expect that they would bump into Mo Lingtian when they were about to leave. Not only did they bump into Mo Lingtian, but Guan Xiao was beside Mo Lingtian. Ning Xi's heart was filled with the feeling of being fucked up. She suppressed her violent nature when she saw Mo Lingtian. With a cold face, she held Ning Tianxin's hand, walked past the two of them, and quickly left. Even after Ning Xi and Ning Tianxin had left, Mo Lingtian still stood there in the same position. Lingtian, Mo Lingtian didn't come to himself until he heard Guan Xiao's voice. What? Are you all right? Guan Xiao asked as she glanced at the two people who had gone far behind her. The woman beside Ning Xi. Is she that woman? The one who threatened you with the baby? Shut up. Mo Lingtian said instantly. His voice was surprisingly cold, and his face was full of frost. Guan Ziao had never seen Mo Lingtian being so cold to her. She was stunned. Noticing Guan Ziyao's hurt expression, Mo Lingtian pinched his eyebrows and explained in a slow voice, Ziao, I've said that she's not that kind of person. It's my fault. Don't say that again. Guan Ziao frowned, but didn't argue. She just looked a little sad and said, sorry, I got it. In the car, She carefully watched Ning Tianxin's reaction from the rearview mirror while driving. What bad luck! Why did we bump into that scumbag? She couldn't help murmuring with a dark face. What made her even angrier was that Sister Tianxin was hurt so miserably, while that scumbag acted as if nothing had happened with a beauty beside him. No wonder he kept asking to see Sister Tianxin in the beginning. Why didn't he say anything? It turned out that he got his true love. Fuck, where was her knife? I shouldn't have tolerated it just now. He's such a playboy, but he's caused you so much trouble. While she was muttering indignantly, she found that Ning Tianxin seemed to have fallen asleep with her eyes closed. Her forehead was covered with cold sweat. She hurriedly sped up. Ning Tianxin's condition seemed to be a bit serious. She should go straight to the hospital. When he was about to turn, he heard Ning Tianxin's weak voice. Don't go to the hospital. Xiaoxi, take me home, okay? She hesitated. There's medicine at home. I'll be fine after resting for a while. Seeing Ning Tianxin's rejection of the hospital, She had no choice but to send her home. Okay, I won't go to the hospital. I'll send you home. Have a good rest in the car. In the restaurant, the melodious sound of a violin filled her ears, and the air was filled with the fragrance of flowers. On the opposite side, Guan Ziao was wearing Chanel's latest custom-made white gown. It accentuated her slender waist, smooth skin, and ample bosom. She exuded a noble and arrogant aura. She was just sitting there quietly, but she was like a glowing object, stealing everyone's attention. Chapter 16:25. Many men around them cast envious glances at Mo Lingtian. However, the man sitting on the chair opposite her was leaning against the back of the chair with his arm casually resting on the armrest. There was a hint of coldness and alienation between his brows. Although he was still sitting there, his expression was obviously distracted. Guan Ziao naturally noticed that Mo Lingtian had been acting strangely ever since he saw that woman. In reality, ever since that incident, Mo Lingtian had been acting strangely. Was it because that woman was pregnant with his child? So even if he didn't like her, it was still different? Even if she didn't like Mo Lingtian, she still felt uncomfortable when she saw the change in his attitude towards her, especially when he spoke to her with that kind of attitude because of that woman. Ever since she was young, Mo Lingtian had never said a harsh word to her. Every time he saw her, all his attention would be on her. But now, Guan Ziao tried her best to ignore the discomfort in her heart. Uncle Lu and Auntie Lu actually arranged a socialite tea party for Ting Xiao behind his back, and even got Xiao Bao to help him pick a woman. This is really... But this time, the Lu family situation is really tricky. No wonder Uncle Lu and Auntie Lu are so anxious. Guan Ziao was filled with disdain when she thought of those women who racked their brains to register for the Lu family in batches. Using such a method to let people pick and judge them was too degrading. Mo Lingtian's slender fingers caressed the wine glass in his palm. His eyes were dark and gloomy. He was obviously facing the woman he loved the most in his life, but he was like a madman. His mind was filled with the image of the other girl he saw just now. When he first found out that Tianxin had hit the child and saw the surveillance footage with his own eyes, he wanted to see her crazily. Later on, his rationality made him control himself and not disturb her anymore. No matter how much he tried to suppress it, his desire to see her grew stronger. He never imagined that he would meet her in such a situation today without any preparation. She had lost a lot of weight. She was already thin in the past, and now she looked even thinner. When she saw him, she was very calm. He noticed that her complexion didn't look too good. She was very pale. Could it be that she was not feeling well? What Guan Ziao said, he could not hear a word. Thinking of this, he could no longer sit still. With a squeak, the chair rubbed against the floor. Mo Ling Tian took out a brown portfolio from behind and put it in front of Guan Ziyao. This is what you want. Sorry, I have something to do. I have to leave now. Ling Tian. Guan Ziyao stood up in surprise and wanted to ask, but Mo Ling Tian had already disappeared. Sister Tianxin, do you really not need to go to the hospital? Ning Shi fed Ning Tianxin a painkiller and made her a dose of medicine according to Annie's prescription, but she was still worried. It's an old problem. I know what I'm doing. I'll be fine after a good night's sleep. Well, I'll stay here with you. Ning Shi tucked her in. After Ning Tianxin fell asleep, Ning Shi walked to the balcony and called Annie. Hey, Annie. As soon as the call was connected, Annie's nervous voice came from the other end. Brother Shi. Brother Shi, I heard you were injured. Are you feeling better now? I wanted to go to see you, but it's a mess here. What's wrong with you? Ning Shi asked hurriedly. Chapter 16:26. Recently, in order to concentrate on recuperating, she hadn't been online much, nor had she paid attention to what was happening in the outside world. Annie hesitated for a moment and said, Brother Shi, don't you know? Brother Shin was taken away by the police. What? Ning Shi's expression changed slightly. When did this happen? Just 3 days ago. Why was he taken away? They said he was suspected of hiding drugs and was taken back to cooperate with the investigation. He hasn't been released yet. Brother Shi, I know you're in a difficult position now, but can you please go and see Brother Shen? He doesn't want to see anyone now. We don't know what's going on with him. We're all worried about him. Hiding drugs? Drugs were indeed very profitable, and almost all organizations were involved in it. However, Yunshin dealt with firearms and looked down on people who dealt with drugs. He didn't allow anyone in his organization to touch drugs. Now that the Liu family and Yunshin were fighting so fiercely, Yunshin's arrest was probably done by the Liu family. Ningxi was really embarrassed about this matter. After learning the relationship between Yunshin and Liu Tingxiao, she had made up her mind not to intervene no matter what happened. However, it was Annie who begged her. Annie had helped her so many times. Annie, don't worry. Master will be fine. It's not convenient for me to interfere in this matter. I can only go and see him if he's willing to see me. The problem was, that guy's mind was so hard to guess. He refused to see anyone at this time. He might not be willing to see her. Annie was very grateful. Thank you, Brother Shi. Brother Shun will definitely see you. I'll ask Brother Yi to arrange it. By the way, I almost forgot. Brother Shi, why did you call me? Nothing. It's about my cousin. She's on her period today and has a stomachache, but she doesn't want to go to the hospital. I'm a little worried. That's normal. I expected it. I can only take good care of her. I prescribed her a special medicine for menstrual pain. Make a bowl for her. Okay, I've made it. She just had a comprehensive examination and is recovering well. Let her have a good rest after drinking it. She'll be fine. Okay, I got it. Thank you, Annie. After making a phone call with Annie, Ningxi immediately felt relieved. Ning Tianxin fell asleep after taking the medicine. Ningxi was watching the latest news on her mobile phone while accompanying Ning Tianxin. Suddenly, her mobile phone rang. It was Lin Jiji. Ningxi hurriedly picked up the call. Hello, Sister Jiji? Xiaoxi, are you feeling better? There's no problem anymore. That's good. Is it convenient for you to come to the company now? There's news about Director Zhang's movie. Lin Jiji said, but she didn't reveal the results of the audition, as if she was hiding something. What? Even though she was mentally prepared that she had no chance with this show, she was still immediately attracted to it when she heard this. Sigh. His mouth said no, but his body was very honest. She actually really liked the script and really hoped to get the role. Not to mention, she would be able to work with Song Lin. Ningxi saw that Ning Tianxin was breathing steadily and looking much better, so she said, Okay, Sister Jiji, I'll be right there. Chapter 16:27. After making sure that Ning Tianxin was fine, Ningxi left her a note and then left. Under a big tree not far from the door of the house, Mo Ling Tian lit a cigarette and hid in the shadow of the tree, staring at the window of Ning Tianxin's bedroom. Suddenly, the door was pushed open from the inside. Then Ningxi walked out. Mo Lingtian was scared out of his wits. He put out the cigarette in a flurry and hid behind the tree, not daring to make a sound. Ningxi seemed to be in a hurry and didn't pay attention to the surroundings. She got in the car and drove away. It was not until the sound of the car engine behind him completely disappeared that Mo Lingtian walked out from behind the tree, as if he had just survived a disaster. In just a short while, his back was drenched in sweat. After Ningxi left, Mo Lingtian stood downstairs for a long time. The house was quiet, and there was no sound at all. She didn't look well just now. Was she really not feeling well? However, Ningxi had already left, so she should be fine, right? Mo Lingtian was very anxious. As long as he could make it up to her with money or any other way, as long as he could calm down and not become so miserable, he would do anything. But the only thing he could do now was not to disturb her. In the office building of Shengshi Entertainment. Gigi, what did Director Jiang say? Has she decided on the female lead? Ningxi asked as soon as she arrived at the office. She was panting as she spoke. It was obvious that she was in a hurry. Sit down. Lin Gigi poured a cup of tea for Ningxi. When Ningxi calmed down, Lin Gigi thought about her words and said, "Actually, the result came out a few days ago. I didn't want to disturb your recovery, so I didn't tell you." Hearing this, Ningxi's heart skipped a beat. So the result is? You didn't pass the audition. The female lead is Jiang Xini, Lin Gigi answered. Ningxi was stunned. She didn't pass the audition. Jiang Xini, one of the representatives of the powerful female stars, had been nominated for Best Actress at the Berlin Film Festival. She was 30 years old this year, married, and had a pair of cute twins with her husband. She was very good at tragic dramas, and no matter how one looked at it, she was very suitable for the female lead of Mother. Ningxi thought Lin Gigi was going to discuss other scripts with her, but Lin Gigi changed the topic. But as far as I know, Jiang Xini was indeed chosen, but she was asked to audition for several scenes. Director Jiang was not satisfied. Now the news is that there may be a second audition. The second time? This turn of events caused Ningxi's heart to be in a mess. Yes, I asked the staff. The news is reliable. If there are no accidents, the second audition will be arranged in the next 2 days. What about the second audition? Ningxi asked hurriedly. There are 5 people, and you are one of them. Lin Gigi replied, and then observed Ningxi's expression. You can consider whether you want to go for the second time. I respect your decision. Obviously, Lin Gigi had noticed Ningxi's abnormality this time. Although she had high hopes for this film, she still respected Ningxi's decision. If there was a problem with her side, even if she managed to get the role, it wouldn't achieve the desired effect. Just when Ningxi was hesitating about how to answer, Lin Gigi's phone rang. Chapter 16:28. Okay, I see. Thank you very much. I'll discuss it with Ningxi and call you back later. Lin Gigi answered the phone and looked at Ningxi. I've got a call from the crew. The second audition will be held at 8:00 tomorrow morning. You can go there faster than I thought. Lin Gigi didn't say anything else and let Ningxi think about it. Ningxi sat on the sofa and stared blankly for a while. After a while, she turned to look at Lin Gigi. Sister Gigi, I'll go there. Help me go back to the crew. Okay. Lin Gigi didn't know whether she was relieved or hoped that Ningxi wouldn't force herself. But she knew Ningxi well. Since she had made the decision, she must have thought it over carefully. I'll go there with you tomorrow. Lin Gigi was still worried. Thank you, Sister Gigi. After chatting with Lin Gigi, Ningxi drove to Peach Blossom Dock. On the way, she received a call from Annie. Hello, Brother Shi. Can I see you tomorrow morning? Ningxi was still in a daze. After a while, she realized that she had promised Annie that she would visit Yunshin. What time in the morning? 9:00. Annie answered. Ningxi frowned. I'm going to the audition at 8:00 tomorrow morning. I may not make it at 9:00. I'll try my best. Okay, I'll tell Brother Yi. Thank you, Brother Shi. After returning home, Ningxi didn't do anything. She didn't study the film or even read the script. After dinner, she lay in bed and slept. It was a dreamless night. Ningxi woke up at 6:00 in the morning. She got up, put on her makeup, and met Lin Jiji. Then she arrived at the audition place half an hour earlier. She found that the other 4 actresses who came for the audition were all here half an hour earlier, no matter what their status was. Everyone's expression was very tense, especially Jiang Xinyi's. Her expression was especially ugly. They had already decided on her, but now they were not satisfied with her and wanted to audition again. How could she show her face now? This was only because it was Jiang Xingzhou. If it were any other director, she would have made a scene long ago. This wasn't the first time Jiang Xingzhou had faced such twists and turns in his casting. Even if the casting crew was halfway through filming, if the casting crew's standards couldn't keep up with his requirements, he would still insist on replacing them, even if it meant breaching the contract. There was no need to talk about giving face to anyone. Jiang Xinyi sized up the other 4 competitors. None of them were as good as her. Otherwise, Jiang Xingzhou would not have chosen her back then. Therefore, she was very dissatisfied with the second audition. Of course, this was her last chance. If director Jiang was still not satisfied, she would not get a third chance. Soon, Jiang Xinyi was ranked 4th, and Ningxi was the last. Ningxi looked at the number 5 that she had drawn and looked at her watch with a frown. The visiting time of the police station was fixed. If she couldn't make it by 9:00, then she wouldn't be able to go today. At 8:00 sharp, Jiang Xingzhou, Song Lin, and the others arrived punctually. After entering the audition room, the producer sat down on a chair and couldn't help but ask Jiang Xingzhou, "Director Jiang, is this audition really necessary? The results of the first audition are obvious. Those 4 obviously can't do it. Only Jiang Xinyi is passable." The scriptwriter also said, "Actually, Jiang Xinyi's performance is really not bad." Jiang Xingzhou snorted coldly with an ugly expression. "Not bad? You call this not bad? Is this the first time you've worked with me?" Chapter 16:29. Ahem. Hearing Jiang Xingzhou's words, the producer and the editor were embarrassed and didn't dare to speak again. But they really felt that Jiang Xinyi's performance was already at its peak. If this wasn't enough, what did he want? After all, even the screenwriter of the script was very satisfied with Jiang Xinyi's performance. Song Lin watched this scene with an indifferent expression. From beginning to end, she did not say a word. Only she knew that Jiang Xingzhou's audition this time was actually just to test one of the people. He wanted to make sure that person's acting skills weren't limited to this. Since she could see it, Jiang Xingzhou must have seen it too. It was impossible that he didn't see Ningxi's performance last time. However, Jiang Xingzhou was impartial. Acting skills were important, but it was also one of the most important qualities of an actor to give full play to his acting skills. Otherwise, acting skills were useless. So even though Jiang Xingzhou had seen it, he didn't say anything. Later, when Jiang Xinyi's performance didn't meet his expectations many times, she pretended to casually mention in Jiang Xingzhou's ear that Ningxi didn't seem to do her best in the first audition. Song Lin tapped the table with her fingertips and glanced thoughtfully at the door. Director Jiang had given them another chance, but it was the only chance they had. If Ningxi couldn't do it this time, then this show would be completely impossible, no matter how she hinted in Jiang Xingzhou's ear. Outside the audition room, the staff told Ningxi and the others the content of today's audition. It was not a random selection, but a fixed number of auditions. In the 37th scene, they lost their son on a rainy night. All 5 of them had only one audition. The staff quickly arranged everything, and then the first few people went into the audition in order. The audition process was faster than Ningxi had imagined. The first, the second, and the third 3 people took less than 10 minutes in total. On average, each person came out in about 3 minutes. And from the looks of the 3 people, it seemed that they didn't go well. Finally, Jiang Xinyi, who was in front of her, was called in. Jiang Xinyi had been in for a long time. Ningxi checked the time. She specially noted that it had been 18 minutes. Lin Jiji patted Ningxi's hand, motioning her not to be nervous. After another 2 minutes, Jiang Xinyi finally came out. Jiang Xinyi pushed the door open and walked out. She then took a deep breath, and a relieved expression appeared on her face. Jiang Xinyi's performance had always been the best among them. During this period of time, she had also been personally polished by Jiang Xingzhou. It was expected that she would perform even better this time. "The last one, Ningxi," the staff shouted. "I'm leaving first. Good luck." Jiang Xini smiled at Ningxi, then turned around and left. It seemed that she had already won. If she was still worried, she wouldn't have left directly, but would have stayed and waited for Ningxi's result after she finished. Ningxi didn't care. In fact, she didn't pay attention to what Jiang Xini said at all. After the staff called her, she got up and went straight into the audition room. "Director Jiang, are you satisfied with this?" Xin Yi's understanding of the character is on point this time. After all, she has a child. Her age is there, and she has more experience. Imagine if it was her own child who left her. It would be more immersive. Chapter 1630. When Ningxi entered, she heard the judges discussing. They seemed to be very satisfied with Jiang Xini's performance, but Jiang Xingzhou, who was in the middle, didn't say a word. When he saw Ningxi come in, he looked up and said, "You can start." "Yes." Ningxi nodded. "She's out of breath," the staff member said. Ningxi's face was blank, without any expression. After a few seconds, she suddenly understood what the staff member said. Step by step, she walked to the child and held the child in her arms. His lifeless eyes were wide open as he looked at the child. It was as if his soul had been sucked out of him. He just stared blankly. She just sat there, motionless like a weathered statue. She didn't do anything. She didn't even have any expression on her face. But in an instant, the atmosphere in the audition room suddenly became extremely tense. The judges, who had thought that Ningxi was just going through the motions, all sat up straight and tensed their backs. They held their breaths and stared at the girl sitting on the cold ground. Jiang Xingzhou's expression didn't seem to change, but his hand holding the pen obviously tightened, and his thin lips tightened into a line. Like the extremely depressing air before a storm, the whole sky was covered with haze and thick clouds. Finally, when the atmosphere was extremely depressing, the girl lowered her head. Her shoulders began to tremble slightly, and her arms holding the child tightened bit by bit. Suddenly, the girl hugged the child tightly to her chest. "Ah!" Broken sobs resounded in this extremely oppressive atmosphere. "Ah!" Hurried, desperate, collapsed. The whole world was collapsing in front of her. Her child. She had been pregnant with the child for 10 months. The child was still alive in front of her a moment ago, but now it had become a cold corpse, her only family in this world, her only spiritual sustenance. She had nothing left after an unknown period of time. Like the first break of a heavy rain, the girl's mood finally eased a little. She held the child and sat there in the same position as before. But everyone knew that it was different. She could never go back. All the vitality in her body had disappeared with the loss of the child, leaving only an empty shell. Director Jiang. In the end, it was Song Lin who reminded Jiang Xingzhou and the other judges as if they had just woken up from a dream. Ningxi's act was over. The producer widened his reddened eyes and stood there in a daze. He took a deep breath and said, "This girl is really not simple." The scriptwriter's face was already covered in tears, and he hurriedly took out a tissue to wipe his tears. She finally understood why Jiang Xingzhou was so insistent. Even she herself felt that Jiang Xini's performance was already the best. But when she saw Ningxi, she realized what real acting skills were. Last time, Ningxi immediately left the scene after she finished acting. This time, she was still sitting on the floor in a daze, holding the child's prop in her arms. "Get up, the floor is cold." Song Lin got up and walked over to help Ningxi up. Ningxi still looked a little dazed. She mechanically turned her head to look at Song Lin. That glance caused Song Lin's heart to throb with pain. This girl is too desperate. Even if he wanted to get into character, he should at least leave some leeway. She was also an actress, so she naturally knew what would happen if she completely immersed herself in such a plot. Chapter 1631. Many excellent actors were so engrossed in their roles that they couldn't get out of it for a long time after filming. Some even suffered from depression. Ningxi, don't be in a daze. Congratulations, welcome to the crew. Song Lin said briskly, trying to help Ning Shi out. Ning Shi's eyes finally focused. What did she mean? Jiang Xingzhou's serious and indifferent face showed some appreciation, and his tone softened. Ning Shi, you did very well. You passed the audition. Is your agent here? If so, we can sign the contract today. Yes, she's outside. Ning Shi said reflexively. She finally came to her senses. She passed the audition? She got the role? Thank you, director. Thank you, Sister Lin. Thank you, judges. Ning Shi thanked them gratefully and went out to report the good news to Lin Jiji. In the audition room, Jiang Xingzhou breathed a sigh of relief when the problem that had troubled him for a long time was finally solved. He glanced at the people next to him. What do you mean by not bad? Do you see it now? The other judges nodded repeatedly and sighed with emotion without saying anything else. Director Jiang, you're so professional. I'm impressed. Speaking of which, this girl is really something at such a young age. Even Jiang Sini can't do this. She probably didn't perform well last time. Luckily, she auditioned again. The young will surpass us in time. Sister Jiji, I passed. Ning Shi rushed to Lin Jiji as soon as she went out. Ning Shi had been in the audition room for 10 minutes. Although it wasn't as long as Jiang Sini's, it was enough for Lin Jiji to be nervous. Seeing Ning Shi come out, she was pleasantly surprised. Really? What did the director say? He said you can sign the contract today. He wants you to go there. Ning Shi suddenly thought of something. She glanced at the time on her watch and said, Sister Jiji, I have to trouble you with the contract. I have something urgent to deal with. I have to leave now. It was already 8:40 a.m. There were only 20 minutes left. It's okay. You go first. I'll take care of this. Okay, Sister Jiji, I'm leaving. Call me if you need anything. After leaving the audition building, Ning Shi drove to the police station. At the entrance of the police station, Tang Yi, Feng Xiaoxiao, Annie and a man who looked like a lawyer were already waiting there. Brother Shi, you're finally here? Seeing Ning Shi rushing over from afar, Annie went up to her excitedly. I thought you couldn't make it. I wanted to call you, but I didn't want to interrupt your audition. Sorry, the audition just ended. What was the result? Is everything going well? Asked, and with concern. Ning Shi smiled. Well, it went well. That's great. Congratulations, Brother Shi. Annie was also happy for her. At this moment, Tang Yi coughed lightly and interrupted them. It's almost time. Ning Shi turned to Tang Yi and said helplessly, So, eldest senior brother, what should I say when I go in? Let's see what his condition is like. At this time, Feng Xiaoxiao squeezed over, put her arms around Ning Shi and interjected, Little junior sister, please persuade him to stop tormenting us and come out. It's a mess outside, okay? Was it really that comfortable to live in here? Are you having so much fun that you forget home? Ning, she was speechless. So, this guy didn't want to come out? She should have guessed it earlier. I'll try my best. Chapter 1632. Then, Ning Shi was brought to the visitation room by the staff. A certain someone was sitting across from him through the glass, lazily supporting his head with his hand, looking annoyed at being disturbed. Not only did he not have the haggard look that a prisoner should have, but he looked even more arrogant and wanton, as if he was not in a prison, but in his own territory. What's the matter? His tone made it sound as though this was his home. This was the first time she had seen him after learning about his relationship with Lu Tingxiao. For a moment, Ning Shi really didn't know how to face him. Ning Shi couldn't help sizing him up a few more times and muttered inwardly. Was this guy really Lu Tingxiao's half-brother? Whether it was looks, personality, or temperament, there really wasn't the slightest resemblance. This was simply too fantastical genetic mutation. Have you seen enough? Sensing Ning Shi's gaze, the man narrowed his eyes. Ning Shi then came back to her senses. Ahem, I'm fine. I'm just here to pass on a message. Have you had enough? When are you going out? Hearing Ning Shi's words, a trace of coldness flashed across Yunshin's eyes, and he said faintly, Wrong answer. With that, he got up and was about to leave. Ning Shi was dumbfounded. Why did he just leave without saying a word? To think that she had rushed over like a dog. Wait, wait. Ning, she was so anxious that she pressed herself against the glass. How did I answer wrong? All right, even if I answer wrong, at least give me a hint. The man who was about to leave glanced at her and sat back down with a magnanimous expression. He said lazily, I'll give you another chance. Why are you looking for me? What the hell? The corner of Ning Shi's mouth twitched as she held her forehead. Why else would she look for him? She was just here to pass on a message. What else could it be? If this answer was wrong, then what was the correct answer? What did this guy mean? Ning, she was going crazy. She couldn't understand what he was thinking at all. After a long while, Ning Shi finally said, Can I ask for help on the spot? The man raised his eyebrows slightly. Seeing that he didn't speak, Ning Shi took it as acquiescence and dialed Tang Ye's number. Hello? What's the situation? Ning Shi lowered her voice and complained, Don't worry, I'm fine. It looks like I can easily torture all of us. As for persuading him to come out, this guy is crazy. I can't communicate with him at all. As soon as he arrived, he asked me why I was looking for him. I told him that I was here to pass on a message and asked him when he would be leaving. He said that my answer was wrong and left without another word. Now, I've earned a second chance to answer him. On the other end of the line, Tang Yu was silent for a long time. She was probably speechless. Then, Feng Xiaoxiao seemed to have snatched the phone away, and her voice could be heard. Idiot! Why did they come looking for him? Because I'm worried about you. 7 words. The correct answer. Understand? Ning Shi, Feng Xiaoxiao muttered. Little junior sister, let me tell you, this guy is a pervert on the inside, and he's extremely childish. He's probably just trying to get your attention. It can't be, right? Give it a try if you don't believe me. Forget it. I'll try to communicate with him again. If it still doesn't work, then there's nothing I can do. What did she mean by, I'm worried about you? She wouldn't say something like that even if she was beaten to death, all right? Even if she was really worried about his condition. Chapter 1633. Then don't hang up. I'll remind you at any time. Feng Xiaoxiao spoke in a serious manner, concealing her pure desire to listen to gossip. Ning Shi thought about it and decided that it wasn't a big deal. She would let them know how difficult it was to deal with this guy. She had tried her best. So Ning Shi didn't hang up and sat back down. Before I answer you, can you answer a question for me? Why are you staying inside? Ning Shi asked. The corners of the man's mouth curled into a sneer. I'll let you see how sanctimonious the gentleman in your heart is. Hearing this, Ning Shi frowned. Did he mean that Lu Tingxiao was the one who did it? Let's not talk about who did it. Even if it was Lu Tingxiao's men who did it, you're on opposite sides now. You've been giving Lu Corporation a lot of trouble, haven't you? Ning Shi said. The man's expression didn't change at all. Instead, he said matter-of-factly, So what? I'm not a good person, but I've never hidden anything from you. Ning Shi. What a twisted logic. Sure enough, she couldn't communicate with him at all. Annie's worried face appeared in Ning Shi's mind, so she resisted the urge and continued to persuade. We are all very worried about you. If it's because of this reason, it's really unnecessary. Okay, now I know. I know he's a hypocrite. Is that okay? Feng Xiaoxiao was anxious on the other end of the line. Junior sister, you can't do this. Everything he said just now was just an excuse. Only what I said to you is the only correct answer. Not a single word more or less. Ning, she was speechless. She couldn't really let her say that, could she? You've used up your chance. With that, the man got up and left. Hey, you! Just as Ning she was about to call out to him. She didn't know if it was because she got up too quickly, but she suddenly blacked out and felt a wave of dizziness. She tried to stabilize her body, but suddenly lost consciousness. Plop, a strange sound came from behind. The man, who was walking halfway, subconsciously turned around and saw the girl behind him fainting on the ground without any warning. Ning Shi. The man instantly rushed back. His originally lazy and cold expression turned into panic. Damn it, don't play tricks. The girl lay motionless on the ground, and her face was abnormally pale. Her brows were tightly furrowed, and her breathing was somewhat rapid. What's going on? What's going on? What happened to little junior sister? Feng Xiaoxiao's anxious voice came from the phone beside Ning Shi. What's going on? Tang Yi asked. At this moment, the man's expression was extremely ugly. He approached the glass window and roared angrily. Tang Yi, get me out of here. Tang Yi. Feng Xiaoxiao. Tang Yi rushed over with his lawyer. In less than 5 minutes, the man was released, and he was respectfully invited out. Where is he? The man asked with a cold face as soon as he came out. After Ning Shi fainted, she was helped out by the staff of the police station. In the car, Tang Yi replied. She's in the car. Don't worry, Annie's here. Feng Xiaoxiao said. A moment ago, the man who looked like he was going to burn through the police station was now walking out of the door at lightning speed. Chapter 1634. In the spacious back seat of the SUV, Annie was taking care of Ning Shi, who was in a coma. Suddenly, the car door was pulled open from the outside, and the man got into the car with a dark expression. He frowned and stared at the girl who was lying on the back of the seat. What happened? Annie glanced at the man carefully, then deliberated over her words before she said, I just checked Brother Shi's pulse. Brother Shi suddenly fainted because he was overwhelmed with emotions and energy. At this time, Tang Yi and Feng Xiaoxiao also came in. Feng Xiaoxiao craned her neck from the front passenger seat and looked horrified. Holy crap! Agitated emotions exhausted. Boss, what did you do to Junior's sister just now? It had only been a few minutes, yet he was able to turn his valiant junior sister into such a state. Wasn't he a little too savage? The man stared at the girl's pale face and recalled what had happened in the police station. He pursed his lips and glared at Feng Xiaoxiao. Shut up! Is she that fragile? Ugh! Feng Xiaoxiao thought for a while and nodded. That's true. If she was really that fragile, she would have been driven mad by you 100 times. What happened then? What caused Junior's sister's mood to fluctuate so much? The car fell silent for a while, and then Tang Yi said, Maybe it's because of the audition this morning. Annie thought for a while and said, Brother, she told me last night that she was going to attend an audition this morning. Apart from that, she didn't say anything else. After the audition, Brother, she came here immediately. So, that was the only possibility. Show me the recording of her audition, Yunshin said in a deep voice. Feng Xiaoxiao's mouth twitched. Boss, that's not appropriate. Yunshin glared at her coldly. Are you that free? Have you completed the S-level mission? Feng Xiaoxiao looked as if she had just eaten shit. Haha, I'm leaving now. I'll go okay. 3 years ago, her master had given her an S-level mission to assassinate an important person, but that guy was too tricky. She hadn't found a chance to kill him for 3 whole years. 3 whole years. To her, this was simply a humiliation. Damn it, when that guy fell into her hands, she would definitely fuck him first before killing him. Ever since Feng Xiaoxiao was humiliated and fled, Tang Yi had always been obedient to Yunshin's words. In the end, he even managed to get his hands on the recording from the morning. Tang Yi, I've already sent it to your phone. Yunshin put on his headphones and clicked on the video. She didn't know what he saw, but his face darkened. Halfway through, he threw his phone aside and stared at the girl lying on the car seat beside him. His slender fingers pinched the girl's delicate jaw. Idiot. Seeing that the man's fingers were squeezing harder and Ning Shi's chin was pinched red, Annie immediately looked nervous. Shen, Brother Shen, shall I send Brother Shi back to rest? The man looked at her coldly. Go to my place, Annie said timidly. But, Brother Shen, you're too scary. Brother Shi will be scared. She can't take the shock right now. She needs a good rest. The man's face was so scary that Annie's voice became softer and softer. In the end, how could a certain person, who had always acted in an arbitrary manner, listen to anyone's opinion? In the end, he still brought Ning Shi to the haunted house. Chapter 1635. I want you to clean up this place in 2 hours. After saying this, the man closed the door of the master bedroom with a bang. Annie looked at the closed door, her face full of worry and self-blame. Brother Shi will be fine, right? After all, she was the one who asked Brother Shi for help. If anything happened to Brother Shi, Tang Yi said, It's fine. I'll keep an eye on him. Annie felt a little relieved. I'll get going then. Let me know if there's anything. Brother Shin cared about Brother Shi a lot. He was so nervous when he saw Brother Shi fainting. Although he didn't care about Brother Shi's fear, he still insisted on bringing Brother Shi here. He even asked her to clean up the haunted house. In the master bedroom, the girl was sleeping soundly on the big soft bed. The man stood by the bed and looked at the girl's sleeping face quietly. He seemed to be lost in some distant memory. When he first met her, she was being bullied by a group of scumbags. Those people were notorious local gangsters who loved to play with Chinese girls who had no background and no trouble. Almost all of them had taken human lives and were fearless because of the gangs behind them. If they were targeted by that group of people, even if they didn't die, they would be ruined. After seeing the girl's face clearly, he immediately understood why she was targeted. Although the girl looked down on, she had a beautiful face. Especially her delicate appearance, it made those people even more addicted to her. He wasn't bored enough to care about this kind of thing. He continued to stay on the balcony and looked at the one-sided killing coldly, as if he was looking at an ant. However, he did not expect that the following plot would unexpectedly exceed his expectations. The moment those people approached, the girl pulled out a gun from behind her. Guns were legal in China, so it wasn't surprising that she had a gun. TSK. She was obviously a newbie. It was her first time holding a gun. Her hands were shaking and her eyes were full of fear. It was just a meaningless and ridiculous struggle. He knew these people too well. They were weak and insignificant. Even if they had a butcher's knife in their hands, it would be useless. She didn't dare to shoot. In the end, just as he had expected, it became a one-sided massacre. But it was the girl who killed those scumbags. With a bang, the bullet hit the center of the eyebrow of the gangster, who was laughing the most wildly and unscrupulously. It accurately hit the vital point and killed him with one shot. Bang! Another shot was fired, and another gangster fell to the ground, still in the same position. The person he was sure wouldn't dare to shoot actually fired 2 shots in an instant. The girl's body was trembling like a sieve. Her whole body was drenched in sweat, as if she had just been fished out of the water. Her eyes were wide open and filled with fear, but she was terrifyingly calm when she fired the gun. It was obviously her first time firing a gun, but she could actually kill with a single shot. If it was just an ordinary person, even if it was an animal, he might not necessarily dare to shoot, let alone a living person. What an interesting child. Unfortunately, the gunshot had attracted the accomplices of that group of people. She would still die tonight. In her sleep, Ningxi had a very, very long dream. She dreamed of everything that happened after she returned to the Ning family. She dreamed of the car accident, dreamed of the child's bruised body, and even dreamed of the time when she almost lost her life in Luoyang City. She dreamed that she killed someone. She dreamed that she was surrounded by a group of vicious people and had nowhere to retreat. A white-haired man descended from the sky and landed in front of her, saying to her, "I saved you. From now on, you are mine." Chapter 1636. She was such a weak person, however. From the moment she fired the gun to the time he brought her back to the organization, she had surprised him time and time again. She was like a weed at the bottom of the hierarchy, but she had the most tenacious vitality. She absorbed everything around her and grew crazily. Perhaps his life was too boring. For many years after that, she had unknowingly become his only source of joy, the only uncertain factor outside of his fate. He didn't know when it started, but when he saw those girls clinging to her and giggling coquettishly, he would feel a sense of viciousness. When he learned that she had the intention to return to the country, he couldn't control his viciousness anymore. He went back on his promise with her and refused to let her go. He even made such a request. Even though he knew he couldn't keep her, he should have gotten used to it. Everything he cared about would eventually be lost. "Brother Yi, I've asked someone to prepare everything." "Brother Shin, isn't he out yet?" Annie stood at the door worriedly. The two had been inside for almost 2 hours. It was very quiet inside, but it did seem to be eerily quiet. Tang Yi frowned, turned around, and knocked on the door gently. There was no response. He knocked again, but there was still no response. Tang Ye's expression changed, and he pushed the door open decisively. Annie followed behind him anxiously. The two pushed the door open with solemn expressions. The next second, they were stunned. Ningxi breathed deeply as she lay on the bed, sleeping soundly. As for Yunshin, he was lying on the edge of the bed, quietly closing his eyes. From the looks of it, he seemed to be asleep. In his sleep, the man's fingers seemed to be unconsciously grabbing a corner of Ningxi's clothes. "Brother Shun," Annie murmured in surprise. Tang Yi looked at the man sleeping quietly and sighed softly. "Let him sleep for a while." Annie fell silent and nodded. Ever since he came back from the Liu family's family meeting, Brother Shin hasn't slept much. Oh my God, my dog eyes. I actually feel that this scene is quite heartwarming and beautiful. Feng Xiaoxiao came back out of nowhere. She rested her head on Annie's shoulder and looked at the scene with an expression as if she had seen a ghost. "Shoo, don't wake them up." After closing the door, Feng Xiaoxiao stood at the door with a horrified expression. "I thought he would go crazy again after bringing little junior sister back. He might as well go crazy. It's too scary. Brother Shin isn't that scary," Annie mumbled. Feng Xiaoxiao glanced at Annie and curled her lips. "If it wasn't for his brain, he would have taken care of junior sister long ago, all right? For whole years. How many chances did he have? And it was such a dreamy story of a hero saving a beauty. How old was little junior sister back then? It was the easiest time to be seduced. Such a good deck of cards was beaten by him like this. I am also drunk. Now, it's too late for regrets." Feng Xiaoxiao continued to complain, but Tang Yi remained silent. He had grown up with that person. That person just didn't know how to express his feelings, nor did he know how to treat someone well, or perhaps he subconsciously resisted giving too much to someone and never revealed his true self to anyone. Probably because of the great emotional consumption, Ningxi slept soundly. When she woke up, she suddenly saw an enlarged sleeping face in her daze. She was so scared that she immediately woke up. She subconsciously shrank back, only to find that her sleeve was tightly gripped in that person's palm. Chapter 1637. Ningxi subconsciously looked at the corner of her clothes that was being grabbed by the man and looked a little confused. The arrogant and lazy disguise on the man's face had disappeared, and his face looked a little childish. She did not know what he was dreaming about, but his brows were tightly furrowed. He looked like he was in great pain, and the knuckles of his fingers that were gripping the corner of her clothes were starting to turn white from the excessive force. His complexion was so unsightly. Could he be sick? Ningxi looked at the thin layer of sweat on his forehead and subconsciously reached out to touch it. However, the man grabbed her hand tightly, like a drowning man grabbing the last piece of driftwood. Ningxi frowned and was about to withdraw her hand when she heard the man murmur in a daze, "Mom." She was stunned. Mom? Had she heard it wrong? Mom? Yunshin murmured again, this time in a hurry and panic, and his voice was very clear. He was really calling her mom. She was lost in thought. What was Yunshin dreaming about? Why was he in so much pain when he dreamed about his mother? The man was still immersed in the nightmare. He looked more and more miserable, and even his body began to twitch slightly. Ningxi quickly reached out to push him. "Hey, wake up! Yunshin! Yunshin!" With a swish, the man suddenly opened his eyes. The next second, Ningxi's throat was strangled by a hand, and she couldn't make a sound. Yunshin's eyes were extremely terrifying at this moment. They were cold and gloomy, and his gaze was enough to suffocate her. 1 second, 2 seconds passed. He finally saw clearly who was looking at him. He finally stopped strangling her, but his face was still very pale. "Who allowed you to be here?" Ningxi wanted to comfort him when she saw that he was having a nightmare, but she was speechless. "How would I know? I remember that I fainted at the police station, right? Didn't you bring me here?" "Don't flatter yourself," the man denied without hesitation. Ningxi scratched her head. "Was it really not him? Then who brought her here? Could it be Feng Jin again like last time? That shouldn't be the case." Eldest senior brother, third senior sister, and the others were all there. Ningxi didn't think too much about it. She mumbled, "You had a nightmare just now. I was kind enough to wake you up, but you almost strangled me to death. What did you see? The man stared at her, as if he were looking at a peeping Tom. Ning, she was speechless under his stare. What can I see? What's so interesting about your nightmares? I just heard you call Mom. The man's expression became even colder, and there was a trace of anger hidden in the depths of his eyes. Get out. Me too. Let go of my clothes first. Yunshin's face stiffened. He waved away the cloth in his hand, and his face was full of disgust, as if she had forced her clothes into his hand. Ning, she muttered as she left. Tang Yi, Feng Xiaoxiao, and Annie were all at the door. When they saw Ning Shi, they immediately went up to her. Brother Shi, you're awake. Junior sister, are you all right? Did that guy do anything to you? Ning Shi shook her head. No. Feng Xiaoxiao's face darkened when she heard this. She sighed as if she had expected better from Yichun. By the way, why am I here and lying on that guy's bed? Ning Shi asked in confusion. Feng Xiaoxiao blurted out. That guy insisted on bringing you back. He even carried you to the bed. Ning Shi. Chapter 1638. That guy insisted on bringing you back. He even carried you to the bed. Feng Xiaoxiao betrayed her without hesitation. Ning, she was speechless. Was that guy schizophrenic? Otherwise, his ability to lie through his teeth and accuse others was too good. Fuck. He chased me away the moment he woke up, and even asked why I was here. Ning, she couldn't help complaining. Feng Xiaoxiao face-bombed. Boss, you're going to be single. But junior sister, didn't you attend an audition in the morning? Why did you make yourself faint? Annie said that you were too emotional and that it was caused by overexertion. Even if it's an action scene, there's no need for that, right? Ning, she coughed. Sometimes this happens when I'm too immersed in my character. It's mainly because I've been too tired recently. Feng Xiaoxiao didn't suspect anything. Boss even insisted on checking the recording of your audition. Ning Shi's heart skipped a beat. What did he say? Feng Xiaoxiao shrugged. I don't know. I just said that it wasn't good for him to do that, and he beat me out of the car. Ning Shi looked at Annie with an inquiring gaze. Annie looked a little troubled, but she couldn't reject Ning Shi's question. She said awkwardly, Boss didn't say anything. He just said 2 words. Ning Shi, 2 words? What 2 words? Annie, stupid idiot. Ning Shi. At this moment, Feng Xiaoxiao's phone rang. It was a certain someone. Send her back. The man's cold voice came from the phone. Feng Xiaoxiao's eyes lit up. She was finally enlightened. Just as she was about to kindly matchmake the two of them and tell her junior sister that there were times when this fellow was still normal, an even colder voice came from the other end of the phone. If you dare to say another word, I'll break your legs. Feng Xiaoxiao. All right, she gave up on treating her boss in the end. Feng Xiaoxiao didn't say anything. Junior sister, your car is still parked at the police station. I'll send you back. Ning Shi nodded and didn't refuse. It was true that they couldn't take a taxi back to this damn place. Ning Shi had just woken up and was still in a daze. However, when she followed Feng Xiaoxiao downstairs and saw the layout of the villa, she was dumbfounded. What the hell? Am I dreaming? Or am I in the wrong place? The originally eerie haunted house had been transformed into a brand new one. The creepy oil paintings on the walls had been replaced with fresh, modern paintings. The dark-colored wooden furniture had all been replaced. Fresh flowers were placed on the table, and the eerie white gauze window had been replaced with dreamy lace. The haunted house suddenly became the princess's castle. What happened during this period of time? Why did this guy's taste suddenly become so heavy? Feng Xiaoxiao looked at her junior sister's oblivious expression, but she couldn't explain that it was all because of her. She was about to suffocate to death. Upstairs, by the window of the master bedroom, the man lit a cigarette and watched the girl leave with a secretive expression. The scene from the audition video that morning appeared in his mind. Idiot, I hope you won't regret it after knowing the truth. Chapter 1639. As soon as Ning Shi got home, she received a call from Lin Jiji. She had signed the contract with the crew. She had finally gotten the role. Jiang Sini had been too impatient and ignored the crew's warning to not divulge anything related to the audition. As soon as she got the news that she had passed the audition, she had secretly leaked it to the media. Now that she had been replaced, it caused quite a commotion and led the internet water army to spread all kinds of conspiracy theories. Although she had just won the Golden Palm Award for Best Actress, she was still not as experienced and famous as Jiang Sini, who had been in the entertainment industry for more than 10 years. Now that Jiang Sini had been chosen, the crew had held a second audition. If Jiang Sini got the role through the second audition, people could not help but wonder. However, because the director was Jiang Xingzhou, who had a very good character and reputation in the entertainment industry, the majority of the people believed that the crew would vote for the audition. On the contrary, many people were looking forward to the sparks between the famous director, who kept creating miracles, and the young Best Actress, and what kind of surprise they would bring to the audience. Apart from the small disturbance before the start of filming, the crew kept a low profile throughout the whole process. They were all filmed in a small village, and there were no related reports. In order to achieve better results, the entire crew lived in the village, working, eating, and living with the villagers. Everyone was worried that a delicate girl like she would not be able to handle such a life. But to their surprise, she adapted very well, did all kinds of farm work well, and was even able to help teach the rest of the crew. Jiang Xingzhou would not choose someone randomly. He had studied Ningxi's background in detail and knew that she had lived in the countryside for 18 years. Even though he had always been strict, he was very satisfied with Ningxi's performance. This girl is not bad. She's good material. As long as she doesn't go astray, she may surpass you in the future. Hearing Jiang Xingzhou's high praise, Song Lin did not mind at all. Instead, she looked in Ningxi's direction and said with a smile, "I never doubted that." Just then, Song Lin's phone rang with a ding. Song Lin picked up her phone and glanced at it. The next second, her expression suddenly changed. Following that, Jiang Xingzhou's phone also rang. Jiang Xingzhou picked up his phone and glanced at it. His face revealed the same astonishment as Song Lin's. Following that, his face was instantly filled with rage. Song Lin caught a glimpse of Jiang Xingzhou's phone screen from the corner of her eye. Seeing that he had seen it too, she hurriedly tried to calm him down. "Director Jiang, before we get to the bottom of things, please calm down." After all, Jiang Xingzhou had been through a lot, so he forced himself to endure it. "Let's finish filming this scene first. Don't affect her mood." "Thank you, director," Song Lin said gratefully with a hint of worry on her face. At this moment, Ningxi still had no idea what was happening in the outside world. During this period of time, in order to focus on filming, she almost didn't pay attention to what was happening in the outside world. It wasn't until the scene was finished in the evening that Ningxi relaxed and found that the crew members around her were behaving strangely. They looked at their mobile phones in groups of 3 or 4 and peeked at her, whispering to each other. Ningxi frowned and walked toward Xiao Tao. He saw that Xiao Tao was anxiously talking to someone on the phone. "Xiao Tao? Ah, Brother Shi." Xiao Tao hung up the phone and looked at Ningxi in panic. "What happened?" Ningxi looked at Xiao Tao and asked. Chapter 1640. Xiao Tao bit her lip and looked embarrassed. She couldn't speak for a long time. "Give me my phone." Ningxi reached out her hand. Xiao Tao hesitated for a moment. Thinking that she couldn't hide it, she finally gave Ningxi's phone to her. As soon as Ningxi unlocked the phone, she saw the latest entertainment news. The eye-catching headline came into her sight. "Golden Brown movie Queen Ning, she sleeps with men." She frowned slightly. Since her debut, there had been such pure gossip. However, after Lin Jiji sued a magazine to warn others, and Shengshi Entertainment's influence in the entertainment circle was so great that even the unknown and irresponsible small press dared not make such baseless reports. But this time, the news that popped up on her phone turned out to be from a very influential media in the industry. And the unusual reaction of the staff, and even Xiao Tao, Ningxi clicked on the page, and her pupils suddenly contracted. As soon as she clicked on it, she saw all kinds of unsightly photos. Even though they were mosaic, she could still see the lewd poses of a man and a woman in the photos. What shocked her was not the photos, but the face of the woman in the photos. It was her. Was it Photoshop? But it didn't look like it. Ningxi continued to scroll down and saw another video. The video had been mosaic, but the faces of the man and the woman in the video were very clear. That woman was still her. Obviously, this video completely broke the possibility of photoshopping. The photos were real. According to the description in the news, the man in the video was a famous playboy from a rich family in this city. Brother Shi, stop watching, Xiao Tao said nervously, as if she was afraid that Ningxi would be irritated. Ningxi pinched between her eyebrows and looked helpless. Even Xiao Tao thought that the woman in these photos was her. Not to mention others, this was really tricky. Ningxi couldn't help recalling that the fake gun had been replaced with a real one on the set of Agents of the Thunderbolts. Even Lu Tingxiao hadn't found out who did it. And now this kind of thing happened again. Did the other party want to destroy her because they couldn't kill her? Or this had nothing to do with the last incident, and it was done by someone else? She had really made a lot of enemies recently. Ningxi, the director wants you to go there. Ningxi was lost in thought. At this time, the director's assistant hurried over and looked at Ningxi ambiguously. Got it. Thank you. Ningxi didn't explain to Xiao Tao immediately. She went to the director first. Inside the house, Jiang Xingzhou and Song Lin were both present. The atmosphere was very heavy. Do you know what happened? Jiang Xingzhou's expression was solemn, and he went straight to the point. Ningxi nodded and didn't look guilty at all. She said frankly, Director Jiang, the woman in the video and photos is not me. I'm very sorry for bringing trouble to the crew. I'll contact my agent to resolve this matter as soon as possible so that it won't affect the filming process. If Ningxi made such a scandal at this time, according to the contract, her image would be damaged because of personal reasons, and she would have to pay a huge sum of liquidated damages. What was more important was that all the efforts of the crew during this period would be in vain. If they recast her, she would not be able to make it to the film festival. It was even possible that her entire career in the entertainment industry would be ruined because of this incident. Chapter 1641. Song Lin broke the solemn atmosphere. Director Jiang, did you hear that? I told you it couldn't be Xiaoxi. The woman in the video only looks like Xiaoxi. She doesn't have any of Xiaoxi's charm. Her expression is stiff, and her figure is obviously not as good as Xiaoxi's. Xiaoxi's waist, legs, and chest are well proportioned, and her body fat percentage is perfect. Not a bit more, not a bit less. She's perfect, but the woman in the video is soft. Her legs are too short, and her chest. Ahem. Jiang Xingzhou coughed. Song Lin chuckled and said innocently, Director Jiang, I'm just stating the facts. Even Ning, she was speechless. It was rare for her to feel embarrassed. Goddess, are you so observant? She didn't expect that the goddess would pay so much attention to her and give her such a high evaluation. Speaking of figure and face, Song Lin was the one with the real charm, and her figure was still perfectly maintained at her age. All right, it's fine as long as it's not you. I hope you can handle this matter well. If it affects the crew in any way, I won't help you. Jiang Xingzhou said with a dark face. Although Jiang Xingzhou's tone sounded very unreasonable, in reality, his attitude had already indicated that he was on her side. After all, he had chosen to believe in her. Yes, I understand. Thank you, Director. Ningxi said gratefully. As soon as she left Director Zhang's office, Ningxi saw Lin Jiji waiting outside the door. It seemed that she had come as soon as possible. Sister Jiji, why are you here? I was just about to go back. No, I don't want to disturb your filming. Ningxi paused. Did Sister Jiji mean, let's go and discuss how to clarify this matter, Lin Jiji said. Ningxi swallowed her words and blinked. Sister Jiji, how do you know it's not me? Lin Jiji said, you don't have bad taste. Ningxi coughed and coughed. She suddenly remembered that she had told Lin Jiji arrogantly that the only man she liked in the entire circle was their boss, Lu Tingxiao. She had just blurted it out. She hadn't expected Lin Jiji to remember it in the room. Xiao Tao had watched the video hundreds of times, and her eyes were almost popping out. Holy shit, I knew it. Even if my brother she wants to choose a man, he should at least choose someone like second young Master Lu. It turned out that it wasn't Brother Shi at all. But this was too similar. He's exactly the same as Brother Shi. It was indeed very similar. If it wasn't someone who knew Ning Shi very well, they would definitely think that that person was Ning Shi. After all, even Xiao Tao, who was so familiar with her, didn't recognize her. This was also the trickiest part of the matter. No one would believe her if she said that the person in the video wasn't her without any evidence to prove her innocence. One possibility is that this person was born to look like you, but this possibility is extremely small. Another possibility is that this person deliberately had plastic surgery to look like you. However, the recovery period for plastic surgery is at most 1.5 years, or at least 2 to 3 months. Not to mention, to do it to this extent, the time is definitely not short. This means that this person has been planning to scheme against you since a long time ago. Lin Jiji analyzed. Xiao Tao was dumbfounded. It took her a long time to recover. This is too scary. Chapter 1642. Lin Jiji frowned. Your fans are all defending you now. It's not like before, when a fake photo was enough to ruin a female star. As long as it doesn't involve moral issues like being a third party, it can only be regarded as a malicious exposure of your privacy. It will definitely affect your image, but it won't ruin you. But the problem is that the other party is obviously prepared. It's not as simple as releasing a video. Ning Shi twitched the corner of her mouth. It wasn't easy for me to get plastic surgery, and I've waited for so long. How can I be satisfied if I don't do something big? Perhaps this video was just foreplay. The three of them unknowingly discussed until late at night. Sure enough, it came faster than they expected. When it was close to midnight, Xiao Tao, who was constantly refreshing the latest news, suddenly exclaimed, Brother Shi, Sister Jiji, there's a new video. Ning Shi and Lin Jiji craned their necks to take a look. Sure enough, they saw a new video, and the content of the video was even more shocking. The woman was with 3 men at the same time, and 2 of them were married. Now the only possibility of clearing her name was gone. Lin Jiji's face darkened. Now the only way to prove your innocence is to find that woman as soon as possible. But the other party is prepared. They won't let us find them so easily. If we can't clear up everything in an effective time, once too much time passes, the fake will become the truth. By then, it would be over for them. Even the company's public relations team will find a premeditated person like finding a needle in a haystack. Then, can we ask the head office for help? Xiao Tao asked in a panic. Lin Jiji smiled bitterly. Of course not. Lu Enterprises is in a tense situation recently. Even the second young master has been transferred back to the head office. Shengshi Entertainment is just one of the countless branches of Lu Enterprises. It's impossible to alarm the head office because of an artist. Ning Shi stroked her phone and thought to herself. It was not easy to find that person, but it was not impossible, as long as she used her previous connections. But she didn't want to use them unless it was absolutely necessary. But the current situation didn't allow her to think so much. Big Sister Jiji, don't worry. I made some contacts back in China. They might be able to help. Before Ning Shi finished her words, at this moment, the door of the cabin was suddenly pushed open from the outside. A slender figure, who was travel-worn but still handsome, appeared at the door. Because the people of this village were simple and honest, there were no locks on the doors. The person who came seemed to have just come down from a formal occasion. He was dressed in a meticulous black suit. His shirt was buttoned to the first button, and his tie was well ironed. His face carried the murderous aura of a superior person. Bo. Ning Shi was about to call him boss, but she was suddenly pulled by a long arm. She fell into a cold embrace, and then she felt a warm and soft touch on her forehead. Ning Shi's brain stopped working, and she was dumbfounded. Fuck. What's going on, my dear boss, my dear sweetheart? Big Sister Jiji and Xiao Tao are still here. Chapter 1643. Ning Shi subconsciously reached out to touch her forehead where he had just kissed her. She stared at her boss, Lin Jiji, and her assistant, Xiao Tao. Okay. The 2 of them had already turned into stone statues. Even someone as calm as Lin Jiji was completely frozen. not to mention Xiao Tao. Her expression could be compared to the horrified expression in the famous painting, The Scream. Ningxi had wanted to put up a last-ditch struggle, but in the end, the great demon king leaned over and kissed the corner of her lips with his warm lips. Ningxi, sweetheart, there's someone else in this room. Hey, there's someone else. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but she somehow felt that Lu Tingxiao's current state was a bit unusual. What was going on? To prevent the Demon King from doing something unpredictable, Ningxi hurriedly diverted his attention. You? Why are you here? Lu Tingxiao said. If I didn't come, would you forget that you have a boyfriend? His tone was so sad. He must have heard what she had just said. She knew he was busy because she didn't want him to be distracted. Ningxi subconsciously glanced at Xiao Tao and Lin Jiji again. Needless to say, with the devil's boyfriend, these two people's worldviews were obviously shattered into powder and then reorganized. Xiao Tao finally couldn't take it anymore and couldn't help but scream. She quickly covered her mouth to avoid alarming others. After all, the soundproofing here wasn't very good. Oh my God! Oh my God! What did she see? What did she hear? Was she dreaming? She must be dreaming. She saw Big Boss hugging Big Brother Shi and kissing Big Brother Shi. She even heard the Big Boss say that he was Brother Shi's boyfriend, the Big Boss's girlfriend, who was so mysterious that she was known as the #1 unsolved mystery in the entertainment industry. Their future lady boss had actually been by her side all this time. It was her brother Shi. Poor Xiao Tao was so shocked by this news that she was torn to pieces. Lin Jiji took a deep breath and used all the calmness she had since entering the industry to calm down. She looked at the big boss who was like a god in the middle of the night. Boss Liu, all right, I can't calm down at all. Ningxi looked at Lu Tingxiao and Lin Jiji with a headache. Her relationship with Lu Tingxiao had been exposed so suddenly that she didn't know how to explain it to Lin Jiji. It took Ningxi a long while to recover. She braced herself and said, Sister Jiji, I'm sorry. You told me from the beginning that I couldn't be in a relationship. I broke my promise to you. Lin Jiji didn't know how to reply. The main point now was obviously not the fact that she was dating in private, but the person she was dating was actually at this moment. Lin Jiji recalled everything that had happened since she took over Ningxi, from Lu Jingli personally inviting her, to Lu Group's top lawyer Chen Jing personally handling the contract dispute between Ning, Shi, and Xing Hui, to the dance at the company's anniversary celebration. Now that he thought about it, it wasn't like there were no clues. It was just that this girl was so good at hiding it. If Lu Tingxiao hadn't deliberately exposed himself today, she wouldn't have found out at all. No matter how urgent the situation was, according to his personality, he should have discussed it with her first instead of suddenly exposing it in front of Lin Jiji. Moreover, the moment Lin Jiji and Xiao Tao left, Ningxi could clearly feel Lu Tingxiao's deliberately suppressed gloominess, ruthlessness, and a strong irritation that was similar to the uneasiness that had been caused by Lu Tingxiao suddenly burst out and wreaked havoc in this cramped room. Did something happen? Chapter 1645. Ningxi was thinking dizzily when she was suddenly lifted into the air. The next second, she was carried to the narrow wooden bed in the room. The quality of the small wooden bed wasn't very good. It immediately made an ambiguous creaking sound. Ningxi didn't have time to think too much. Hot kisses fell on her again, lingering on her sensitive earlobes, collarbone, chest. His hot big palms also followed into her clothes, causing waves of tremors wherever they went. However, the slightest movement would cause the small wooden bed to sway like a small boat in a raging storm, as if it was about to fall apart. Ningxi's nerves were strained by the squeaking sounds. She panted slightly and said, Holy shit, this little bed. Sweetheart, can I discuss something with you? We might as well go out and find a cornfield to roll in. Lu Tingxiao stopped what he was doing and bit the tender flesh on the girl's chest. Nonsense. I'm serious. Being interrupted by Ningxi, the man's violent and out-of-control aura eased a little. He tightened his arms and held the girl in his arms. Ningxi held the man's arm and put her little head on his chest. Lu Tingxiao, what happened? The man's voice was low. Nothing, I miss you. Ningxi thought for a while. They hadn't seen each other for a long time because of this movie. His answer didn't seem to be wrong, but she somehow felt that there was something else. Then you just told Sister Gigi that what happened today had something to do with you. What did you mean? Ningxi asked again. Lu Tingxiao's face froze. I'm not sure yet, but you just need to focus on earning the dowry. Leave this matter to me. Ningxi, focus on earning the dowry. The man stared at the girl in front of him, his eyes full of darkness, and his broad palm gently held the girl's waist. Xiaoxi, huh? Have you ever regretted it? The man's voice was hoarse. Regret? Regret what? Ningxi was puzzled. To be with me. Ningxi's eyes widened, and she said without hesitation, How could that be? This is the wisest decision I've ever made in my life. Marry one and get one for free. I don't want it to be too profitable. Lu Tingxiao sighed and held the girl's head in his arms. It's late. Go to sleep. Don't think too much. I'm here. I'll stay with you for a while. We'll leave before dawn. And Ningxi rubbed against the man's chest and nodded. Because of Lu Tingxiao's appearance, all the unsightly videos and photos on the internet, as well as the malicious words and speculations, suddenly vanished in a thin air, turning into a deep sleepiness after exhaustion. The girl clung to his arms like a little animal. She murmured sleepily, Sweetheart, I like you the most. You're my sunshine. Lu Tingxiao's back suddenly stiffened, and he bent over to plant a kiss on the girl's forehead. The girl beside him had already fallen asleep, but Lu Tingxiao had not slept the entire night. His mind was filled with the video he had just seen not long ago. The video of Ningxi's second audition. That video had brought him to the moment when she had been in despair all those years ago. The scene in his mind changed, and another scene appeared. Lu Tingxiao opened his email on his cell phone and clicked on the attachment in the most recent anonymous email. There were a few photos in the attachment. The first one was the one he had seen when he had helped Ningxi move out of her apartment. In the photo was a group of young people dressed in punk and heavy metal. Ningxi was in the middle, wearing a black motorcycle suit. She was dressed in men's clothing, and there was an unrestrained smile on her face. Her arm was casually resting on a man's shoulder, and she was turning her head to talk to him. Her posture made it seem like they were very familiar with each other. And that man was turning his head to light a lighter. In addition to the dim lighting, he could not see his face clearly. He could only see a blurry side profile and a head of white hair. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.